I really want you to just picture something for a second. Put yourself in this exact scenario because I guarantee you've been there at least once.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has.
Right. So you are driving late at night, you've been on the road for hours, and you've hit that state of highway hypnosis,
Oh, yeah, where you're basically on autopilot.
Exactly. It's just the rhythmic flash of the white lines disappearing under your bumper. The dashboard lights are casting this soft, solitary, almost submarine-like glow in the cabin.
It's a very specific vibe.
It really is. The rest of the world's completely asleep, and it's just you and the engine. But then the fuel light dings.
Or maybe your eyes are just getting heavier.
Yeah, exactly. And that physical imperative to just stretch your legs or, get some caffeine completely takes over. So up ahead, breaking through this endless ocean of rural darkness, you see it.
The glowing sign.
Yes, the towering, glowing neon sign of a solitary gas station. Or maybe the blue reflector board of a highway rest stop. Usually it's like a beacon of relief, right?
Right, safe harbor.
You pull in, you leave the safety of your locked car, and you step out into the fluorescent light. But what happens when that exact space, that necessary, unavoidable pit stop, is not a sanctuary at all?
Well, what you're describing there is, it's the psychology of the transitional space.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
So we treat these late night stops as if they exist outside of reality. It's almost like a pause menu in a video game.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, a pause menu.
Right. We are so focused on a singular biological goal, like get fuel, get coffee, use the restroom, that our situational awareness just completely drops.
We just tune everything else out.
Exactly. We view the glowing sign as an implicit promise of safety simply because it represents commerce or infrastructure.
Yeah.
But from a predatory perspective,
Yeah.
that predictability is exactly what makes these environments the absolute perfect hunting ground.
And that is exactly what we are tearing apart today on this deep dive. We're looking at 3 incredibly harrowing, real-life accounts of late-night stops that went catastrophically wrong.
And we have some really intense source material to go through today.
We really do. But we aren't just going to tell you what happened. The mission of this deep dive is to look at the exact mechanics of how these situations evolved.
Right, the biological responses of the people involved.
Yeah, and the psychological blind spots we all have when we travel. Because the terrifying thing about our first account is that the predator didn't even have some elaborate plan.
No, he really didn't.
Right. He just relied on an opportunity, and he used the victim's own, deeply ingrained social habits against her.
It's a profound look at how our society conditions us to be polite, often at the direct expense of our own physical safety.
Okay, let's unpack this. So imagine this. We have a woman in her early 20s. She recently went through a really bad breakup in Boston.
Which is already a stressful life event.
Totally. And she had to move back in with her parents in rural western Massachusetts. Now, if you've ever driven through western Mass, you know that once you leave the interstate, it gets pitch black.
Oh yeah, just heavy, dense woods.
Exactly. There are no streetlights, just winding roads through these heavy woods. So she gets her old job back at an urgent care facility, but she is the new hire again.
So she gets the worst shifts.
You guessed it. She gets stuck with the overnight shifts.
Which, biologically speaking, is a massive physiological stressor right off the bat.
Because of the sleep schedule.
Yeah, working the overnight shift completely inverts your circadian rhythm. You are chronically fatigued, your cognitive processing speed is lowered, and you're operating in the world when the rest of society is asleep.
You're just inherently isolated.
Exactly.
So her world is basically upside down. It's 4:00 a.m., her shift ends, and she is starving. She stops at a local bagel place that opens early to grab a chicken sandwich and a salad, which is basically her dinner.
At 4 a.m.
Right. Then she realizes she needs gas to make it home. She pulls into this massive Shell station. It's one of the only places brightly lit for miles.
And these lots are designed for heavy daytime traffic.
Right. Yeah, they're huge. But at 4 a.m., it is completely deserted. She goes inside the little convenience mart to pay cash, comes back out to her pump, and suddenly the environment has changed.
The baseline has been altered.
Yes. There is another car there, a blue sedan parked at the pumps.
And right there, that's the first huge red flag. She entered an empty, static space.
Yeah.
She went inside, dropping her visual connection to her car, and returned to an occupied space.
And a massive lot with, dozens of available pumps.
Exactly. If someone pulls up right next to you, or even in your immediate vicinity when the entire lot is empty, that is not a coincidence.
It's intentional.
It is a predator purposefully closing the distance and establishing proximity.
And he doesn't just sit in his car either. The guy gets out of the blue sedan, he takes the gas nozzle, puts it in his car, and flips down that little metal latch on the handle so it keeps fueling automatically.
So his hands are free.
Exactly, his hands are free. He doesn't look at the pump. He turns, walks right over to her side of the pump island, looks her dead in the eye, and says, "Want to see a funny trick?"
Wow. It's just a jarring, completely out of context question for 4 in the morning in an empty lot.
Right. Her gut reaction is instant terror. Every alarm bell in her head is screaming that this is wrong, but she doesn't run.
She doesn't scream either.
No, she actually responds. She says, "What's the trick?" And this guy proceeds to do that incredibly stupid, classic magic trick where you fold your thumb down and pretend to pull your own finger off.
Oh, wow. Just bizarre.
Yeah, he's staring at his hands doing the trick, then staring back at her with this bizarre, sarcastic, dead-eyed expression.
That is so unnerving.
She's profoundly uncomfortable. Her heart is pounding, but what does she do? She actually forces a fake laugh.
Yeah, there it is.
She politely chuckles, basically hoping that validating him will make him go away. But it doesn't. He just stands there, continuing to do the trick over and over until her tank finally clicks full.
Just maintaining that uncomfortable pressure.
Right. She slams the nozzle back, rushes inside to get her change, and when she comes back out, the guy is gone. But his car is still there, still pumping gas.
What's fascinating here is that the physical manifestation of the threat is still occupying her space. The lingering car is like a psychological anchor.
Oh, that makes sense.
But let's pause and look at her reaction for a second, because this is where the survival psychology gets incredibly complex.
Yeah, I want to dig into that fake laugh, because on the surface, it makes no sense, right?
To a lot of people, no, it doesn't.
Why, when our primal instinct is screaming at us to run or fight, do we put on a polite smile for a creep in a parking lot? It feels to me like a submarine pinging sonar.
How do you mean?
Well, the guy with the weird finger trick, he isn't just making a bad joke. He's dropping an absurd, confusing interaction into the environment and waiting to see how her nervous system echoes back.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Right, because if she screams or tells him to back the hell off or gets in her car and locks the door, her defense shields are up. The sonar pings back a hard target.
Exactly. She establishes a boundary.
But by fake laughing and staying polite, did she basically signal that her shields were powered down?
Yes, absolutely. And you are hitting on one of the most misunderstood mechanisms of the human nervous system, the fawn response.
The fawn response. Okay, explain that.
Everyone knows fight or flight, right? Some people know freeze. But fawn is the fourth F, and it is just as deeply wired into our biology.
So it's an instinct.
Yes. Fawning is an unconscious trauma response where an individual attempts to appease, pacify, or please a perceived threat in order to avoid conflict and survive.
So she wasn't just being nice, her brain was actively trying to survive by defusing a bomb.
Exactly. The amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, basically hijacked her prefrontal cortex. The brain calculates the fastest, safest route to de-escalation.
And society kind of trains us for that, right?
Oh, heavily. From a very young age, society, especially for women, conditions people to be accommodating. We are taught to smooth over awkwardness, to never make a scene, to not be quote-unquote crazy or rude.
And this guy knew that.
This predator implicitly understood that social programming and weaponized it. The trick was absurd, but its absurdity was a highly calculated intrusion.
It forced her to make a choice.
Right, it forced her into a micro-decision. Escalate the situation by being aggressive to a seemingly playful stranger, or comply with the social contract of politeness.
And by choosing politeness, her fawning response gave him a psychological green light.
He confirmed she was compliant.
That is terrifying because her internal software, her intuition, was 100% accurate. She knew he was a threat.
But the social programming overrode the biological warning.
Wow, so she gets in her car. She's super paranoid now, understandably. She actually checks her back seats before getting in, which is a great move.
Very smart.
She locks the doors and starts the drive home. She only lives 5 minutes away. She is checking her rearview mirror constantly, staring at the dark road behind her, but she sees absolutely nothing.
No headlights.
No headlights, no one following her. But somehow, he tracks her right to her parents' house. Wait, if she was checking her mirrors, how did he follow her without her knowing?
He employed a very simple but highly effective tactical maneuver. He drove with his headlights entirely turned off.
Just completely blacked out.
Yes. In an urban environment, ambient street lighting would illuminate his car. But in rural western Massachusetts at 4 a.m., under the canopy of trees, a dark-colored sedan driving with no headlights is practically invisible.
You literally wouldn't see it.
Right. If you were only looking for the two glowing orbs of headlights in your rearview mirror, a blacked-out vehicle simply ceases to exist in your visual field.
Oh my God.
He used the cover of total darkness to shadow her taillights from a distance. But the truly alarming phase of this hunt is what happens when she arrives at her destination.
Right, because she pulls into her parents' driveway. She gets out of the car, she walks up to the front door, reaches under a specific spot on the porch, pulls out her parents' hidden spare key.
Oh, the spare.
Yeah, she unlocks the door, puts the key back exactly where she found it, goes inside, and locks the deadbolt. And she feels safe. She made it inside the fortress.
Which brings us back to that concept of the transitional space.
Oh, so...
We talked about the gas station being a transitional space, but the 10 seconds between your car door closing and your front door locking is the most vulnerable transitional space in your daily life.
Because you think you're safe.
It is the threshold. Your guard completely drops because your brain registers that you are finally home.
But wait, if he was driving with his lights off, parked out on the pitch-black street, how on earth did he see her grab a tiny spare key in the dark?
We have to consider the biology of night vision here.
Okay.
She had just been staring at the fluorescent lights of the gas station, the bright dashboard of her car, and likely the illuminated porch light. Her pupils were constricted. Her night vision was ruined.
Ah, so she couldn't see into the dark.
Exactly. The predator, however, had been sitting in the dark, driving in the dark. His eyes were fully adapted to the low-light environment.
That makes so much sense.
He didn't need a spotlight to see what she was doing. He just needed ambient moonlight and observation. He watched her from the tree line or the street. He observed her routine.
He literally watched her reach for the hidden key.
He watched where her hand went before the door opened. And crucially, he watched where her hand went after she locked it.
That is so creepy.
Hidden spare keys are a massive, almost universal security flaw. People hide them in entirely predictable micro-locations, Under the welcome mat, inside a fake plastic rock perched on the upper lip of the door frame.
Yeah, everybody does it.
But once he had the mechanical bypass to her fortress, he didn't need to break a window. He didn't need to kick the door. He just needed to wait for her to settle down.
Which is exactly what she does. She goes into the kitchen, sits at the dining room table, and starts eating her chicken sandwich and salad. It's 4:30 a.m.
She's probably exhausted.
Completely exhausted, and she is trying to be incredibly quiet so she doesn't wake up her parents upstairs. She is mid-bite. And then the sound echoes through the quiet house.
A lock.
Yes. She hears the front deadbolt click. She hears the heavy door slowly creak open. She hears it close.
Imagine the physiological shock of that moment. The environment she believed was absolutely secure has just been silently breached.
She freezes with food in her mouth, absolute silence. She manages to whisper, yell for her parents. No answer.
She's totally alone on that floor.
So she abandons the food, sprints up the stairs, and bursts into her parents' bedroom in a state of absolute hysteria. She wakes them up, screaming that someone just walked into the house.
Which is the right move. Wake the house.
Right. Now, her dad is 65 years old. He instantly snaps awake, jumps out of bed, and charges downstairs. He starts flipping on every single light switch, flooding the house with light.
Taking away the shadows.
Yes. He checks the front door. It's locked. But then he looks out the window at the hiding spot. The spare key is gone.
The realization that the predator is not just at the door, but actively inside the perimeter.
The dad starts tearing through the house, room by room, closet by closet. The mom and the daughter are huddled together, terrified.
I can't even imagine the panic.
The dad clears the main floor and heads down into the basement. The daughter, operating purely on some primal intuition, looks over at the dining room. She gets down on her hands and knees. She looks under the dining room table where she was just eating, and there he is. The guy from the gas station with the dead eyes is curled up under her family's table.
The face from the fluorescent lights of the commercial lot has successfully navigated all the way into the shadows of her most private sanctuary.
Just waiting there.
It is a terrifying testament to predatory persistence.
She screams at the top of her lungs. Her mom starts screaming. Her dad hears the chaos, sprints up the basement stairs, and throws himself at the intruder.
A direct confrontation.
A full-on, violent, physical altercation erupts right there in the dining room. Now, the dad is 65, the intruder is in his 20s. On paper, the predator has the total physical advantage in terms of youth and stamina.
Usually, yes.
But the mom and the daughter don't just stand there. They jump into the fray. They're throwing punches, grabbing at him, doing whatever they can. It is a chaotic 3-on-1 brawl.
A collective defense.
Exactly. And finally, under the sheer ferocity of the family's defense, the guy manages to break free, scrambles out the front door, and runs off into the night, still clutching their spare key.
Wow.
The police arrive. They have to physically wedge a heavy wooden chair under the door handle for the rest of the night, and a locksmith is there at dawn changing every single lock on the house.
It is a remarkable survival outcome, really, and it perfectly illustrates the concept of the broken predatory expectation.
Okay, walk me through that, because it seems like the guy had all the cards, right? He had the element of surprise. He was inside the house. Why did he run from an older man and 2 women?
Because predators, specifically the type who rely on stalking, shadowing, and silent infiltration, they're opportunistic hunters. They're seeking the path of least resistance.
I don't want a fair fight.
Exactly. They want an easy, compliant, isolated target. When he slipped through that door, his mental calculus was based entirely on the gas station interaction.
Where she fawned.
Right. He thought he was dealing with one frightened, fawning, isolated young woman. He wanted absolute control.
But instead, he kicked a hornet's nest.
Exactly. When he was suddenly confronted by an enraged father, and then flanked by the mother and the very victim he thought he had isolated, his entire operational fantasy shattered.
He wasn't in control anymore.
He lost the element of control instantly. The moment the prey ceases to act like prey and transforms into a unified, violent defense force, the attacker's priority shifts from conquest to escape.
That makes total sense.
He retreated because the psychological and physical cost of the attack suddenly astronomically outweighed the perceived benefit.
This story completely changed how I look at my own home. I mean, I want you, the listener, to really evaluate your routines right now.
It's so important to do an audit of your habits.
Yeah. When you make those final turns into your subdivision or your driveway, are you just operating on autopilot? Or are you actively practicing transitional space awareness?
Are you looking for blacked out cars parked on the curb?
And more importantly, do you still have a physical spare key hidden outside your house? Because after hearing this, the idea of leaving a piece of metal under a fake rock feels like you are leaving an open invitation for anyone with the patience to sit in the dark and watch you.
We outsource so much of our security to the assumption of privacy. But a hidden key relies entirely on the hope that nobody is looking.
And you just don't know that.
In the dark, you cannot guarantee you are alone.
That brings us perfectly to our second narrative in this deep dive, because the terrifying thing about the gas station stalker is that he just relied on opportunity.
Right, he improvised.
He saw her, and he improvised a way into her life. But the dynamic changes completely when a predator doesn't wait for an opportunity, but actively engineers a trap.
Yes, this is a very different psychological profile.
If the first story was about how politeness can invite a predator in, this next story is about how empathy can be weaponized to pull you completely out of your safety zone.
We are moving from the opportunistic stalker to the orchestrated ambush.
Orchestrated ambush. So imagine leaving Long Island, New York. You are embarking on a massive month-long road trip down to Florida.
That's a huge trap.
Massive. Now, anyone who has ever tried to drive through the New York and New Jersey metro area knows that the daytime traffic is a soul-crushing nightmare.
It really is. It will add hours to your trip.
Right. So this driver makes a strategic decision. They set their alarm, wake up in the dead of night, and hit the road at 2 a.m. The goal is to catch Interstate 95 South and just fly down the eastern seaboard while millions of people are asleep.
Which is a very common logical travel strategy.
Yeah.
But again, as we discussed, it places the traveler in an inherently isolated timeline.
Exactly. By 4 a.m., they have cleared the city and are deep into a rural, heavily wooded stretch of New Jersey.
Still totally dark.
Pitch black. The adrenaline of the departure has worn off and the physical needs start kicking in, specifically extreme hunger. They haven't eaten since dinner the night before.
So they need to stop.
Yeah. They are scanning the darkness, and up ahead, they see one of those massive, blue, reflective highway signs indicating food at the next exit. They hit the blinker, take the off-ramp, and follow the arrows toward a Wendy's.
The illuminated sign. It is the ultimate psychological anchor for a traveler.
And that's exactly what it is. We trust the corporate logo. We think Wendy's is a known entity. It is safe. It is regulated.
It lowers your guard.
Totally. So the driver pulls into the lot. The area around it is totally desolate. No streetlights, just heavy woods flanking the property. The building itself has some interior lights on. The massive drive-through menu board is glowing brightly in the dark, and there is only one other car in the lot.
Where is it parked?
It's parked way over in a dark corner spot right up against the tree line. The driver assumes it's an employee's car. They pull into the drive-through lane, roll down their window, and stare at the glowing menu. They say hello into the intercom.
Let me guess. No answer.
Dead air. Just the hum of their own engine.
The moth to the plane. The infrastructure acts as a lure, but it's an illusion of an open business.
Yes. The driver pulls out their smartphone, searches the specific location's hours, and their heart sinks. The place doesn't even open until 6:00 a.m.
The lights were just left on a timer.
Exactly. So they are sitting there in their car, in the drive-through lane, in the pitch black, looking at their phone, trying to figure out the next stop. And suddenly, bam, 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 3 loud knocks on the passenger side window.
Oh, that is the sudden breach of the perimeter right there.
The driver practically jumps out of their skin. They drop their phone, whip their head around, and there is a man standing right outside their passenger door.
In the dark.
Yes. But he isn't scowling. He isn't holding a weapon. He is smiling. A warm, apologetic smile. He gestures with his hand, making a rolling motion, asking the driver to roll down the window.
And here we see the first tactical phase of the trap. The escalation test.
What's the test?
Will the victim comply with a request that actively compromises their physical barrier?
Oh, wow. Well, the driver is hesitant. They don't roll the window all the way down, just a crack. Maybe 2 inches.
Still a breach, though.
True. The smiling man leans in and says, "Hey, sorry to scare you, but the place isn't open yet." The driver, trying to be polite, says, "Yeah, just figured that out." Then the smiling man drops the hook.
Here it comes.
He points over to that single car parked deep in the shadows by the woods. He says, "Listen, my battery just died. I am completely stranded. Could you please help me out and give me a jump start?"
Notice the narrative he creates here. He is establishing a false sense of camaraderie.
Like they're in it together.
Right. We are both travelers, we are both stuck here in the dark, but I am the one in distress. He is utilizing the damsel in distress tactic, regardless of his gender. It is an appeal to our most basic human empathy.
And it works to a degree. The driver feels a pang of guilt, but they also have a practical excuse. They tell the man, "I'm sorry, I would help, but I don't have jumper cables."
A polite refusal.
Right. But the smiling man has an immediate counter. He says, "Oh, don't worry about that. I have a set of cables in my trunk. I just need your battery."
And right there, if we pause and apply critical thinking, the mechanical logic of his story completely disintegrates.
Wait, break that down for me. Why is that a red flag?
Think about the mechanics of a car. If he was driving on the highway and pulled into the Wendy's, his car was running. A battery starts the car. The alternator keeps it running.
Oh, right.
If a car dies immediately after being driven, or while idling in a lot, jumping the battery won't magically fix a dead alternator.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, if he just realized his battery was dead, why would he already know he had cables in his trunk, ready to go? The details don't align with the spontaneous breakdown.
He had an answer ready too fast.
Exactly. But the predator relies on the fact that the victim is not diagnosing mechanical failures at 4 a.m.
No, the victim is thinking about morality. The driver actually sits there and thinks about karma. They literally think to themselves, if I drive away and leave this guy stranded in the dark when I have the power to help him, I'm going to have terrible karma for this month-long trip.
The social guilt completely overrides the logical inconsistencies.
It really does. So the driver agrees. They put their car in gear, drive around the building, and pull up to the dark corner of the lot. The man directs them to park hood to hood with his car, right on the edge of the dense woods.
Let's analyze the spatial positioning here, because this is the hallmark of a highly organized ambush.
Okay, what are we looking at?
He didn't park under the bright lights of the drive-thru. He parked in the deepest shadow, abutting a physical barrier, the woods. By directing the victim to park hood to hood, facing the trees, he forces the victim's car to point its headlights away from the street.
Oh, so no one driving by would see anything.
Exactly.
Right.
And it leaves the rear of the victim's car exposed to the open parking lot. He is controlling the sight lines and intentionally creating a physical blind spot.
It is entirely orchestrated. So they both pop their hoods. The smiling man connects his cables. The driver gets back in their car, starts in the engine, and tells the guy, "Okay, give it some gas, try to turn it over."
And what does he do?
The guy takes his sweet time. He slowly gets into his driver's seat, turns the key, and nothing happens. No click, no engine turning, just dead silence. The driver thinks, okay, maybe it needs a minute to charge. They wait. Still nothing.
It's a mechanical stalling tactic.
Yeah.
He is actively buying time.
Exactly. Then the man gets out of his car, pulls out his cell phone, and steps a few feet away into the shadows. He starts making a phone call, but he is speaking in Spanish, and his voice is incredibly low, almost a whisper.
He's communicating with the team.
The driver doesn't speak Spanish, so they just sit there behind the wheel, tapping the steering wheel, waiting for this Good Samaritan mission to be over. The man hangs up, walks back, and says, "My buddy said to just give it 2 more minutes to get a good charge."
Just locking him into that spot.
The driver's annoyed, but they agree to wait. And then the jaws of the trap snap shut.
The pivot from deception to kinetic aggression.
Out of nowhere, cutting through the silence of the night, is the terrifying, aggressive roar of 2 heavy-duty diesel engines. 2 massive pickup trucks come flying into the Wendy's parking lot at high speed. One truck whips around the left side of the building, the other comes from the right side. They are moving with absolute synchronized purpose.
A coordinated strike.
But the driver's stomach drops. They realize instantly, I am the prey. This is a setup.
The low-volume phone call was the signal. The fish has taken the bait, the hood is up, the car's immobilized, bring the blockades.
The driver leaps out of the car, rips the jumper cables off their battery, and slams their hood shut. But it is too late. The 2 pickup trucks slam on their brakes, aggressively boxing the driver's car in from the rear and the side.
So they're totally trapped.
Completely. The driver is pinned between the trucks, the quote-unquote stranded car, and the dark woods.
Oh.
There is no physical way to drive out.
And the guy who needed help.
The driver looks over at him. He is still standing there, but the warm, apologetic smile is gone. He is looking at the driver with pure, unfiltered malice.
The mask drops because the physical trap is secure. The deception is no longer necessary.
Now, this is where I want to talk about how the brain processes extreme trauma in real time. The driver has maybe 2 seconds to react before men start pouring out of those trucks.
2 seconds is nothing.
Right. They could lock themselves in the car and hope the glass holds. They could try to fight. But instead, the driver hits the lock button on their key fob, completely abandons their vehicle, and sprints as fast as they can directly into the pitch black woods.
Wow. They left the car.
They are crashing through thorns, tripping over roots. They run until they physically hit the dirt, cutting up their shins. They lay completely flat against the earth, pressing themselves into the soil, making themselves as tiny as humanly possible. And they wait.
That split-second reaction is a flawless execution of breaking the ODA loop.
The ODA loop. Break that down for me.
It's an acronym. ODA. Observe, orient, decide, act.
Yeah.
It's a military concept for decision-making in combat.
Okay, how does it apply here?
When an ambush is sprung, the attacker relies on the victim getting stuck in the orient phase. The brain is trying to make sense of the chaos. Why are there trucks? What is happening? Who are these people?
You're trying to figure out the situation.
Exactly. If you spend 5 seconds trying to orient yourself, you freeze and you lose. This victim survived because they bypassed the orient phase entirely.
They just jump to act.
They observed the threat, instantly decided the car was a lost cause, and acted by fleeing into the only uncontrolled environment left, the dark woods.
Because if they stayed in the car, what happens?
When you are flanked by superior numbers and heavy vehicles, your car ceases to be a sanctuary. It transforms into a steel coffin. You cannot out-accelerate a blockade.
So running was the only option.
By locking the car and fleeing into the darkness, the victims stripped the predators of their primary advantage. The predators wanted a fast, clean extraction of property or a person. By disappearing into the brush, the victim utilized the only advantage they had left, which is unpredictability.
And making themselves tiny was crucial. Because as they are lying there, they hear the doors of the trucks open. They hear heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel, walking toward the tree line.
They're being hunted.
The driver hears at least 3 distinct male voices yelling back and forth in Spanish, actively scanning the dark woods for them. The driver is holding their breath, their heart hammering so loud they think the men can hear it.
That is terrifying, just lying there in the dirt.
They are just waiting for a flashlight beam to hit them, but it doesn't. Searching a dense, thorny woodland at night takes time and effort. The voices eventually stop yelling. The footsteps retreat.
They gave up on the person.
A few moments later, the driver hears their own car alarm start blaring. Then, the sound of glass shattering. After what feels like an eternity, the engines roar again and the trucks speed off into the night.
The ambush predators realized the human target was too costly to pursue in the dark, so they pivoted to the secondary objective, property.
Exactly. The driver waits an agonizingly long time before creeping back out to the parking lot. The trucks are gone. The stranded car is gone. The driver's car is sitting alone under the faint light. The rear passenger window is completely shattered out.
And what did they take?
Because the driver was moving to Florida for a month, their entire life was in the backseat. Suitcases, expensive clothes, shoes, watches. 80% of their wardrobe totally gone.
Wow.
They eventually flagged down a police officer, and the cops confirmed the worst. They checked the highway cameras. The stranded car had fake license plates. The 2 pickup trucks had no plates at all.
He was a professional crew.
It was a highly coordinated, professional robbery crew that used the Wendy's as a hunting blind.
It is a devastating loss of property, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we must reiterate, property is replaceable. Life is not. The instinct to hide, to reduce their physical footprint, saved them from kidnapping or severe physical violence.
I want to challenge everyone listening to this right now. Be brutally honest with yourself. Put yourself in that driver's seat. It's 4 a.m. You are alone in a desolate lot. Someone knocks on your window and politely asks for help.
It's a hard question to ask yourself.
Would your desire to be a decent human being, your fear of being perceived as a jerk, or your worry about bad karma override your situational awareness?
Because we are deeply culturally programmed to help our fellow man.
But this story violently proves that sometimes the person asking for help is the architect of your destruction.
Empathy is a beautiful, essential human trait. But in isolated, uncontrolled environments, your empathy must be governed by strict operational security.
Operational security, like boundaries.
Right. There is a concept in self-defense. Don't be a mechanic in the dark.
Oh, I like that.
You can absolutely help a stranded motorist. You can pull out your phone, call highway patrol and report their location so a professional can assist them. But you do not have to roll down your window.
You don't have to get out of your car.
You do not have to open your hood. You do not have to enter their physical space.
That is the ultimate role. You can call for help without becoming the help. Now, we've discussed a home invasion that started with an opportunistic stalker at a gas station. We've discussed a highly orchestrated robbery trap at a closed Wendy's.
Which covers 2 very distinct types of predators.
I want to transition to our third and final narrative for this deep dive because it introduces a completely different and arguably more terrifying predatory motivation.
Okay, where are we going with this one?
What happens when the motive isn't stealing your property and it isn't a crime of opportunity, but is instead a pure, persistent psychological hunt across multiple locations?
We're moving into the territory of the active, unrelenting predator.
Exactly. And I want to point out right away, the victim in this story is a man.
Which is an important distinction to make.
Right, because we often talk about these scenarios through the lens of female vulnerability, but this narrative absolutely shatters the stereotype that only women need to fear late-night travel.
Predators prey on vulnerability, and isolation creates vulnerability regardless of your size or gender.
Absolutely. So we have a male driver. He is on a brutal 15-hour overnight road trip down the East Coast. He is deep into a very isolated stretch of highway, far from any major cities or commercial hubs.
So he's really in the middle of nowhere.
It's the dead of night, hardly any other cars on the road. He has been drinking coffee to stay awake, and he reaches that agonizing, undeniable point where his bladder is completely full. He desperately needs to use the restroom.
He can't put it off anymore.
He can't hold it. He sees a blue sign for a rest area and pulls off the highway.
Now describe this specific rest area, because they vary wildly in terms of security.
Right. This is not a massive, well-lit travel plaza with a food court and a gas station. This is one of those old-school, desolate highway rest stops. It is literally just a small brick building in a sea of concrete surrounded by trees.
Very isolated.
There are no semi-trucks parked there for the night. There are no vending machines. There are no employees. It is completely unstaffed. When he pulls in, there is only one other vehicle in the parking lot.
What kind of vehicle?
A generic passenger car with deeply tinted windows. He can't see if anyone is inside.
The environment sets a very specific baseline here.
Yeah.
Total isolation.
He gets out of his car, stretches his legs, and walks into the men's room inside the small brick building. And the second he crosses the threshold, he is confronted with a deeply disturbing anomaly.
What does he see?
There is a man standing inside the bathroom, but he isn't using a urinal. He isn't washing his hands at the sink. He isn't using the hand dryer.
What is he doing?
The man is standing completely rigid, facing the corner of the room with his back to the door. He is just staring directly into the blank brick wall.
Wow.
And there is absolute dead silence in the room. No water running, nothing.
In behavioral analysis, this is what we call a massive predatory anomaly.
A predatory anomaly.
Yes. When an environment has a designated purpose, like a restroom, human behavior within that space is highly predictable. When someone is engaged in an activity that completely defies the purpose of the space, especially a bizarre, silent posture, it is a glaring red flag indicating severe erratic intent.
The driver freezes in the doorway. It's so jarring, his brain tries to process it. He almost asks, "Hey man, are you all right?" But the vibe in the room is just too hostile. It feels heavy.
It's palpable.
But here's the crazy part. Despite the alarm bells, the driver tries to act normal. He puts his head down, walks past the guy staring at the wall, goes into a bathroom stall, and shuts the door. Why on earth would he trap himself in a tiny box with a potential lunatic?
Because of a psychological phenomenon called normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias.
The human brain is incredibly lazy. It takes a massive amount of cognitive energy and emotional distress to accept that you are in immediate, life-threatening danger.
So you just pretend you aren't.
Exactly. When confronted with bizarre or threatening stimuli, the brain will desperately try to force the situation into a normal framework. The brain says, he's not a predator waiting to attack me, he's just a weirdo who drank too much.
That makes it less scary to process.
By treating this situation as normal, the driver doesn't have to experience the panic of fleeing. He tries to complete his biological mission.
But the body knows better. The driver stands there in the stall, and he physically cannot go to the bathroom. His body is in fight or flight mode. It's that awful, oppressive, dead silence outside the stall door.
The adrenaline just stops everything else.
He stands there for a full minute, sweating, and decides he just can't do it. But to maintain the illusion of normalcy, he actually flushes the empty toilet just so the weird guy thinks he used it, unlocks the door, and steps out.
He is still fawning to the environment. He is trying to exit politely without triggering a confrontation.
But when he steps out of the stall, the dynamic has escalated. The man is no longer facing the wall.
He moved.
He has turned around. He's standing in the exact same spot, but now his body is oriented toward the stalls, and he is staring directly at the driver. And the driver notes something chilling.
What is it?
The man has this terrifying, unsettling face, specifically his eyes. The driver described it as a completely blank stare. No anger, no emotion, just a void.
That blank stare is frequently reported by survivors of violent encounters.
Really? Why?
It often indicates that the predator is experiencing a high state of physiological arousal, but they have completely detached from the humanity of their target. They're looking at the victim the way a butcher looks at a piece of meat. It is pure calculation.
That is so deeply unsettling. Well, the driver doesn't say a single word. The illusion of normalcy shatters. He spins around, power walks out of the bathroom, sprints to his car, jumps in, and starts the engine.
Good. Get out of there.
He throws it in reverse to back out of the spot.
Yeah.
As he is backing up, he looks through his windshield and sees the man walking out of the brick building, coming straight out the door, walking with purpose directly toward his car.
He's pursuing him.
The driver throws it into drive, floors the accelerator, speeds out of the rest area, and merges recklessly back onto the highway, his heart hammering against his ribs.
He successfully executed an evacuation. He recognized the threat and removed himself from the physical perimeter, but the underlying issue hasn't been solved.
Right. His physical imperative, the desperate need to pee, is still there. In fact, the adrenaline dump probably made it worse.
Oh, absolutely.
He is speeding down the highway, breathing heavy, and he rationalizes the event. He thinks, okay, I survived a weird encounter, I'll just drive to the next rest stop. He checks his GPS or highway signs and figures the next rest area is about 20 minutes away. He can hold it for 20 minutes.
20 minutes of highway driving at night is a significant distance. We're talking 20 to 30 miles down the road.
Exactly. He puts distance between himself and the threat. After 20 agonizing minutes, he sees the next blue sign. He pulls into the second rest area. It looks nearly identical to the first one. Small brick building, surrounded by trees.
But what's the parking lot look like?
This time, the parking lot is completely empty. There are no tinted cars, no vehicles at all. He breathes a massive sigh of relief. He parks his car literally right in front of the back room door. He rushes inside, relieved that the room is empty, goes straight into a stall, locks the door, and finally gets some relief.
He let his guard down. because the visual confirmation of an empty lot resets his baseline to safe.
But as he is finishing up, he hears the heavy exterior bathroom door creak open.
The isolation is breached.
Footsteps echo loudly on the tile floor, and they aren't shuffling, they aren't wandering. The footsteps walk in a deliberate, purposeful, direct line right past the sinks, right past the urinals, and they stop dead directly in front of his locked stall door.
The psychological pressure of that exact second is immense. The realization that you are trapped in a 3x5-foot box.
The driver holds his breath. He slowly looks down at the gap between the bottom of the stall door and the tile floor. He sees a pair of shoes standing right on the other side of the metal door. And his blood runs cold. He recognizes them instantly. It is the exact same pair of distinctive shoes the man at the first rest stop was wearing.
This elevates the entire encounter from a creepy coincidence to a highly sophisticated, persistent hunt.
How is that even possible? It's like a horror movie monster that just teleports to the next location.
Think about the mechanics of what the predator had to do to pull this off.
Okay, let's break it down.
When the victim fled the first rest stop, the predator had to rush to his tinted car, speed out onto the highway, and actively track the victim's taillights in the dark for 20 to 30 miles.
Without being seen.
He had to maintain visual contact without getting so close that he spooked the victim again. When the victim pulled into the second rest area, the predator likely cut his headlights, parked further back on the entrance ramp or in the shadows where the victim wouldn't see him, waited for the victim to enter the building, and then moved in for the trap.
He stalked him across state lines, basically. So the driver's sitting on the toilet, trapped. The social anxiety kicks in first. He finally manages to croak out, "Someone's in here." He expects a mumble or an apology or footsteps walking away.
What does he hear?
Dead silence. The guy outside the door doesn't say a single word. He doesn't shuffle his feet. He just stands there, breathing, inches away from the metal door.
That silence is a weapon. It is a form of psychological torture.
It's awful.
The predator is asserting absolute, terrifying control over the environment. He is telling the victim, "I am here, you have nowhere to go, and I dictate what happens next."
So what do? The driver realizes he can't fight his way out. He is sitting down, pants unbuckled, in a tiny stall. If he unlocks the door, the guy can just rush him and overpower him.
He's in a terrible defensive position.
But the driver does something absolutely brilliant. He doesn't scream for help because no one is outside. He pulls out his cell phone, he dials 911, and before it even rings, he hits the speakerphone button and turns the volume all the way up.
A masterstroke of situational deterrence.
The phone rings loudly echoing in the tile bathroom. The dispatcher picks up and says, "911, what is your emergency?"
Did he talk to the dispatcher?
The driver doesn't whisper. He projects his voice, making sure it cuts through the door. He says, in a loud, authoritative tone, "I am at the mile marker 42 rest area. I am locked in a bathroom stall. I am being followed by a dangerous man who tracked me from a previous location. He is standing right outside my door. I feel actively threatened for my life. I need officers here immediately."
He completely shifted the entire power dynamic without throwing a single punch.
And the result is instant. The exact second the stalker hears the dispatcher's voice crackle over the speakerphone, the shoes turn around.
The spell is broken.
The heavy footsteps walk quickly and urgently away from the stall, out the heavy bathroom door, and vanish into the night.
Let's deeply analyze why this specific tactic works so flawlessly, because it is the most actionable piece of survival advice we can offer today.
Right, why did that work so well?
In a confined space, physical flight is impossible. Physical combat is a massive gamble, especially against a predator who initiated the confrontation. So, you must change the attacker's mathematical equation.
Changing the math.
Yes. Predators operate on a subconscious cost-benefit analysis. The benefit is whatever twisted gratification they get from the assault. The cost is the risk of being caught, injured, or identified.
So he raised the cost.
By putting the 911 operator on speakerphone, the victim introduced a highly powerful third party into an isolated room. The dispatcher acted as an immediate audio deterrent. The victim stripped the predator of his two greatest operational assets, his anonymity and his control of the timeline.
Because the cops are now on the clock.
Exactly. The predator knew that a recorded line was active, that law enforcement was dispatching units, and that his physical description and location were being broadcast. He didn't flee because he was physically overpowered. He fled because his tactical advantage evaporated in 3 seconds.
Make the cost of the attack far outweigh the perceived benefit, and the predator will self-evacuate. While the driver stays locked in that stall, sweating, waiting. Finally, about 15 minutes later, He hears a loud, authoritative knock on the metal door and a voice saying, "State police!"
Finally.
He opens the door. The police had completely cleared the brick building and the parking lot. The stalker was long gone. They give the driver a police escort for the next 20 miles down the highway until he is safely out of the desolate zone.
That's a good response from law enforcement.
I really want you to lock this tactic away in your brain. Your phone is not just a tool to call for an ambulance after you've been attacked. It can be an active psychological shield. Broadcasting the voice of authority can literally break the trance of a predator.
It forces reality back into the isolated bubble the predator tried to create.
Which brings us to a really powerful synthesis of everything we've talked about on this deep dive. Across all three of these incredibly intense narratives, we see a unifying thread, a fatal flaw that predators actively look for and exploit.
And what is that?
It is our relentless societal compulsion to ignore our gut feelings for the sake of adhering to social norms.
We are so afraid of being embarrassed or being perceived as rude that we will literally compromise our own physical safety to avoid an awkward interaction.
Think about the woman at the massive Shell station. Every primal alarm bell in her biology told her the man with the finger trick was a threat, but she forced a fake laugh because society taught her to be accommodating.
Her phone response kept her polite.
Right. Think about the driver in the New Jersey Wendy's lot. They noticed the mechanical inconsistency of the jumper cables being in the trunk, but they completely suppressed that logical red flag because they were terrified of having bad karma or seeming heartless.
They prioritized empathy over security.
And the man at the brick rest stop. He saw a terrifying silent figure staring at a wall, and instead of instantly retreating, his brain's normalcy bias convinced him to walk right past the threat and trap himself in a stall just to avoid making a weird scene.
In every single one of these instances, the survivor's initial primitive instinct was 100% accurate. The danger only escalated when they allowed higher-level social processing and guilt to override their primal warning systems.
If you take away anything from this deep dive, let it be this. Politeness is a daytime luxury. It is a social construct for safe, well-lit environments. When you are alone, late at night, in an isolated transitional space, your only obligation in this entire world is your own survival.
Absolutely.
You do not owe a stranger a polite smile. You do not owe a stranded motorist your mechanical expertise in a pitch-black parking lot. You do not owe a bizarre person in a bathroom the benefit of the doubt.
Cultivate the ability to give yourself permission to be rude. Give yourself permission to be highly suspicious. And give yourself permission to flee a situation without offering anyone an explanation.
I want to leave you with a final, chilling concept to mull over the next time you hit the road. Throughout this entire exploration, we have focused on these specific locations. The massive, empty gas stations, the closed fast food lots, the isolated highway rest areas.
Right, the transitional spaces.
We rely heavily on this modern infrastructure. We are conditioned to treat those glowing neon signs as safe harbors, as lighthouses in the dark sea of the interstate. But consider the reality of the geography. These places are predictable bottlenecks. Every single traveler, eventually, has to stop at one of them.
Which means the most dangerous predators don't actually have to hunt. They don't have to search the woods. They just have to wait by the watering hole.
Exactly. If these beacons of safety are the exact places where the predators are waiting, knowing that we have a biological necessity to eventually pull over, how do we fundamentally rethink the way we travel? How do we break the predictability of our own routines?
It's a huge question.
Next time you are driving late at night, the hypnotic hum of the tires lulling you into that false sense of security, and you see that bright blue highway sign glowing on the dark horizon at 3 a.m., will you automatically view it as a sanctuary? Or will you see it for what it could truly be, a perfectly illuminated trap?